1, 2, 3. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Warm up my panini, yeah. My Foreman grill, yeah. Warm her for Nani, yeah. On my Gangsta Grillz. Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. My name is Fonte, yeah. DJ Drama's my peoples, yeah. The best Gangsta Grillz, yeah. Separate but equal. Roll call. Back Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call.
My name is Sugar.
Yeah.
I don't need no drama.
Yeah.
But I do need a DJ.
Yeah.
Fuck it, you're hired.
Roll call. Suprema. I'm offended. Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call.
It's Layup.
Yeah.
And it's a must.
Yeah.
You know that DJ Drama was my college crush.
Roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call.
DJ Drama.
Yeah.
You know my mama.
Yeah.
She's a white lady.
Yeah.
She didn't go to Grady.
Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Suprema, Suprema, roll call. Oh boy! All right.
That was fun.
Yeah, so that's the episode.
Yeah.
See you next go around.
All right, look, I will shut up, man. All right, so I will say this much. Back when my band started to tour, 1994, I kept receipts of which DJs were open to us and feeling and supporting us. And of course, you know, some cats up in New York, Tony Toca, you know, Tony Touch, showed us love. This cat named Boo the Barber, who used to do these blends, showed us love. Of course, you know, Philly's own Cosmic Kev, DJ Cash Money. But there was one mixtape in particular that always got run on our tour bus. And it just said Philadelphia on it. And, you know, it meant something to me because this is the first time that I'm hearing Malik B and Tariq and Dice for All actually on a mixtape, you know, and we just ran that tape over and over. Like, that was damn near the soundtrack to 1994 and 95 on our tour bus. So, you know, cut to 7 years later, you know, once the Roots sort of evolve and whatnot, and now we have 2 tour buses. As I've joked before, that there was this Slytherin tour bus and the Gryffindor tour bus. So I'd be on Slytherin, which was Tariq's bus, and, you know, which was, you know, it was always popping on his bus. We were the nerd bus, but, you know, his joint was always popping. And it wasn't until, like, the end of maybe the Phrenology tour where, you know, Tariq's trying to explain to me that every time I hear this little John drop, which, of course, you know, he's trying to explain to me that that's, you know, Tyree from back in Philly. It's dramatic. And I'm like, wait, it doesn't make sense, though. It doesn't, only because the thing is that when that mixtape of 94, I've never heard someone just devote an entire mixtape to what we called underground or backpack rap or whatever. You know what I mean? Which is why the Roots couldn't find any real estate on your SNS or your Tony Touch, not Tony Touch, like, you know, like
Slay or
all those, like, we barely got on them joints.
Who Kid.
Right. And so I was like, wait a minute, he what? And they're like, yeah, man, he moved to Atlanta and now he's, you know, and I've always wanted to have this conversation with, which is if you know, it's like we never chopped it up for real.
So dope.
I knew one of these days we were going to have a conversation, so I wanted to save it for here.
I'm glad. I know we've had a couple of interactions on IG about it, but never like in depth.
This is our first in-depth conversation. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Questlove Supreme, the master. God himself,
Mr. Thanksgiving.
Yes, DJ Drama.
Oh man, thank you,
AKA DJ Dramatic.
Thank you for having me. Dramatic.
Do you get tired of those people like always pointing out the Mason Dixon line of your before and after life?
No, I don't get tired of nothing because they could never care. So, yeah,
Facts.
Nothing tires me when it comes to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm trying to, because again, like,
No, I mean it's a very important part of the story for myself and for hip hop and for Southern culture, like in a lot of ways. Like what if I would have went to Temple, or what if I would have went to NYU? You know what I'm saying? So the fact that this kid from Philly who literally grew up watching the Roots as his inspiration of, wow, you can really do this, and DJing for Bahamadia, and my roommate when I got to college was Rubik's, whose best friend was Talib Kweli, and I'm DJing lyricist lounges, and then that kid goes on to be a part of and transform like trap music, and
movement.
Gangsta Grillz becomes like the most important mixtape series literally of all time, but also how important it was to Southern hip hop culture. So yeah, it's one of those like destiny stories to me when when it's told. And like, I've literally been in Atlanta longer than I was in Philly, but those 18 years of born and raised in Philly, once from Philly, always from Philly, you know what I'm saying? So,
all right, when's the last time you said join?
I say John all the time.
There you go. All right, just checking.
even at Mean Streets, like, some of my employees who started interns, like, we have signs up like, do not come in this John, like, or in our new building Generation Now, like, there's a big sign of Colby, or we have like a Philly map on the side. So we still rep.
Word up. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what's up. Of course, Layup, you mentioned on your roll call that you two went to Clark. So
You had a
now you're
crush
from
on me?
Atlanta.
I remember the day.
I
It was
thought it
our
was always
first
that I had
day
a
at
crush on
school.
you.
No, don't do
I
that. That's a
did.
lie. Me and Nadine used to fight over you all the time, and you know that. Let's not do that.
Yeah, I thought it was the other way around.
But I do remember the first day you
It's
walked
gonna be
on
another
campus
Lenny Kravitz episode.
with that
Or Quincy
dashiki on.
Jones.
Oh no, please.
When
I
Diary
used to still wear the green fatigues from I Goldberg, like when I got to school.
with the dashiki.
I still had them
still
Jones.
and
wear
the
them
locks.
Yeah,
And the locks.
yeah.
Yeah, that
Definitely
was-
had the long locks.
So that's why this is the whole interesting thing. And it's funny because Amir, he said if it was in demand, he would do an automatic relaxation mixtape again.
Yeah.
I just want to say that to everybody who's listening. Did you hear this content?
Yes, sir.
Well-
you hear that, all you 50-year-olders out there?
Right. Well,
No,
He
we're
has
not
us
50.
covered.
Interestingly enough, just even during my most recent tour that I went on, I actually physically got my hands on the first automatic relaxation, which was the first CD, which happened to be called, it was Hip Hop Lovables. And what's so like, people don't realize, like, when I first made automatic relaxation, like, it was before neo soul was a thing, or
Right.
like hip hop love songs were like, before everybody was like singing, or it was so much melody. So like, it was a Hip Hop Lovables, like I named it that because it didn't really exist at the time. And then I just recently got my hands on my actual Philadelphia tape with, Thoughts.
You have a copy of it?
I do. I do. I should have brought it.
Damn.
I definitely should have brought it. I got the green cup. My homeboy from Philly who lives across the street from my mom, D, shout out to D, he found it in his crib, and I was like, if you go on my Instagram, I actually show it. I show the tape, and then I go and then show my Grammy, like, to see where I came from and where I'm at now.
How it started, how it's going.
Yeah, how it's going.
So Phil.
Yeah.
So for you, what was your first musical memory?
My first musical memory for me is being in Germantown. My dad lived on Rubicam Street, and the older kids having the younger kids say, the roof is on fire. We don't need no water. Let it burn. And they left out motherfucker. Like, vividly remember years later being like, damn, I didn't know they said let the motherfucker burn, because they used to say let it burn, let it burn. And then probably, you know, I mean, my dad was a big doo-wop guy, so I definitely grew up around like him playing a lot of, you know, the Commodores and the Temptations, and then, you know, obviously Thriller came out 83, you know, so I was probably like, I was 5 when Thriller came out, so that was a big moment. And then another one for me was definitely wanting Adidas because of my Adidas, like, and then my I didn't get, my parents bought me the wrong ones. They bought me like, they didn't buy me the ones with the 3 stripes. Right. Yeah, I didn't get the 3 stripes, so.
They were still Adidas though, right?
They were Adidas, but they weren't the 3 striped ones.
There was like in Eckerd's Drugs. My parents were doing like a
Eckerd's.
Wow.
They were doing my parents were doing they were doing a residency in San Juan, Puerto Rico. There was an Eckerd's Drugs across the street, and you know, this is when Adidas made Top 10 Adidas, the red, blue, and green like high top thing, and so they were like, we got you Top 10 Adidas, but it had 4 stripes.
Oh,
It was like the $12.99 joint.
not Adidas and not K-Swiss either.
Yeah, and that's
Like Bleebas.
and that's when right, and that's when like you had to run your shoes down before you got another pair of shoes.
Okay.
So yeah, just
Before you
all
got
in
another
7th
pair.
grade, I just
Yeah.
got laughed at because you know I got a pleather Thriller suit and I got 4 stripes in my Adidas. So
He was that nerd.
Well, similar, yeah. I got the wrong. I felt like I didn't get the right Adidas. I never forget that.
I see. But for you, when did at least turntablism, like, when did that attract you?
I mean, it was Juice, really. So for me, when I grew up, you know, I mean, the first like piece of vinyl that I got was this compilation vinyl. It was called like Street Rap. And
It was like a K-Tel Records joint or something.
it had to
one
be
of them
something like
compilation
that.
joints,
I don't
yeah.
remember where I got it, but this is way before like my DJ career started. And it had like Rockbox on it. It had Roxanne, UTFO.
K-Tel.
And I remember like, you know, literally like memorizing Roxanne by UTFO, and it had a couple other songs on there. So that was my first actual physical like piece of hip hop vinyl. But around like maybe like 10, 11, I got really into skateboarding, you know, and I was super into skateboarding, and it was all about Thrasher magazine. It was all about going down to Love Park. So this is like in middle school for me. And, you know, I came up at a time when down at Love Park, there started to be this movement or this group of black skateboarders. So it was maybe like 7, 8 of us at the time. And, you know, shout out to my brother Stevie Williams. He was like the youngest of all of us, and he was also the best. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, I was the worst. So
What about Chuck Treese? Was he around back then?
I think so.
He's older though.
Yeah, he was older.
He's
He was older.
And he's still skateboarding.
We were a little-
And
we
he's
were-
still old.
Yeah, we were a little younger.
He's still.
But, you know, they
Kids.
used to basically like make fun of me because I could barely land a kickflip, and like, or even like when we used to like go to Wawa and like steal the fucking the jugs of iced teas and everything, and then like when we would skate off, I would always be like behind. And
Get caught.
Yeah. Never got caught, but I was like last when we would try to skate back to Love. So yeah, I was super into skateboarding. I think Nickelodeon had like Skate TV out or something around the time, and then between 8th grade and 9th grade, I went to the movies to go see Juice, and I was just blown away. I mean, like, I think for a certain age group of us as DJs, like Juice was really monumental in our careers because, you know, and again, like in Philly culture, like we always like Philly had the DJs, New York had the rappers, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, I knew early on about Cash Money and Miz and Jeff and what have you. So, but it was really Juice that started my fascination with like, I might want to try that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I dabbled about, you know, with rapping a little bit, never was really that good at it. And then so 9th grade, after seeing Juice, I convinced my mom to buy me a turntable and a mixer, and she did. It was a belt drive originally, I got a
the belt,
So
yeah.
it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. So I originally got like a belt drive turntable and one mixer. I remember.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Techniques. Was it a Gemini or a
It
Technique?
was a Gemini. It was a Gemini belt
Okay.
drive. Yeah, it was a Gemini
So
belt drive.
for those that are wondering,
Yeah, belt drive versus direct drive.
Belt drive is like, you know, when
Jigga, jigga.
yeah, when you jigga, exactly. It takes a long time to rev back up. So like,
Good times.
yeah, without a Technique 1200, that you wasn't really doing nothing. So, but I remember I did like, you know, it was a kid. His name was Ari Foreman. I did his
Ari.
birthday. You know Ari?
Sound familiar.
Yeah, Ari's still around. He's like he's
much so.
doing production and film and things like that.
He does. He did some art for us, like him and Tramp, and like they designed.
It's so crazy how the world is still connected.
Philly.
His birthday party was my first party, so I remember the first records.
Really?
Yeah, he went to Central with me.
Okay.
Um,
Wait, you and Ari are the same age?
We are. Yeah, we came in ninth
Wait,
grade
I'm
together.
older than Ari. I'm way older than you. So by the transitive axiom,
Yeah,
if
you're
A
older
equals
than
B
Ari.
and B equals
Yeah.
C.
Yeah.
By a couple
Yeah.
years.
It's okay. It's
Not by
Ari's
much
so
though.
Ari's so classy. Like I always thought he was like slightly older than me
Yeah, we're in the same class. 255.
because he's the one that introduced me to Cosmo. Okay, so go ahead.
So I used to save my lunch money. My mom would give me like $5 every day for lunch.
What did your parents do, man? What was
Yeah.
My mom is a teacher. She's in education. She's been in education forever. She was she now has her PhD in education. But when I was growing up, she would teach in Philadelphia high school. She taught at Alney. She taught at Overbrook. Yeah, I think she went from Alney to Overbrook. So she was at Overbrook when I was at Central. And my dad used to work for this Quaker organization in Philly called AFSC, American Friends Service Committee. And then, so he spent a lot of time, part of his job was spending a lot of time in Eastern Europe. So like he used to travel to the USSR at the time, and you know, and then later on he would go to other parts of Eastern Europe and like, you know, help out like what are known as gypsies, and you know, which pretty much are like, you know, people of European descent, but they almost get treated as black people over there in a sense. And then my dad, you know, both my parents were very politically active growing up. So like my dad used to be in SNCC, Student
what I
Nonviolent
thought.
Coordinating
Okay.
Committee. Yeah, so you know, I grew up going to like.
Because did you go to charter school? Did you go to one of the charter schools?
I
in
didn't. I
Philly?
always wanted to go to a charter school.
Like Lotus Academy.
Bro,
or
I wanted to
something.
go to Friends Select or GFS or Penn Charter so bad, like, because I knew so many kids that went there. It's funny because I put my daughters in the Friends schools and they're like, "Oh, Dad, why did you do this to us?" And I was like, "Man, growing up, I wanted to go to a Friends
Right.
school." But I think that
Like
just might
early
be
Montessori or something.
it might just be a Philly thing. It's Quaker.
Quaker, okay.
And that's like a PA thing. But I went to public school. Like my parents couldn't afford me to go to those schools, so I went to Masterman and I went to Central. So I always went to like good academic schools. Like I had good grades in school and what have you. So yeah, so I used to go downtown between Armin's, Funko Mart, and Sounds of Market.
Yep.
And I would buy my records, and I would, you know, the first records I bought was like the Who's the Man soundtrack, Heavy
Wow.
D was Who's the
Yeah,
Man,
yeah.
Party and Bullshit
Party and
was
Bullshit
the
was on it.
B-side.
So you spin album cuts and the grooves are this small and not loud enough. Feedback.
Super Ghetto Red,
Ghetto Red Hot, Super Cat.
Super Cat, Ghetto Red Hot, Fat Joe,
was a
Flo
good
Joe, yeah, and you know, this was around the time when like, you know, in Philly, like there was the Goats and then there was the Square Roots, and you know, that was you know, my introduction to like hip hop and DJing, and this was all around that time, around that era.
You know, even for me, like to be a drummer at as young as I was, and I would get these catalogs, these Sam Ash catalogs, whatever. Drums were like $7,000,
Right.
and so I mean, lucky for me, my dad had like access to stuff. Usually, like band members that succumb to an addiction or whatever, and leave the equipment. And that's how like would inherit drum sets when I was younger. But like DJ equipment though, man, was like
Right. Expensive.
were you just on one turntable and one cheap Radio Shack joint or like a mixer?
For a while, I had the I guess it was a Gemini mixer that had the 8-second sampler.
Yes.
Yes, Scratch Master.
Yeah, I had that.
Oh my God.
How do you know that?
I had access to one. We always had one.
That was like you were DJ too?
No. I used to
Contact.
make beats on it. Like,
Okay.
'cause it had a
'cause
sampler.
it had the sampler.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you could loop, and you had to like turn the thing to catch it. You know,
Perfectly.
to catch it perfectly. And yeah, my finger was like all tore up.
I had the
Yeah.
one.
And then I remember I used to write my grandparents, my mother's parents, like letters, and like when I would get good grades, I would like write them letters like, "Hey, I got good grades. Like, can you get me this?" And
Dearest Pappy.
and then my grandparents actually, I think, were the ones who bought me my Technique 1200s. So they bought me my Technique 1200s, and then I would do little gigs here and there. And I think, at Armin's at the time, like, or not even Armin's, I think at Funko-Mart, you could buy, speakers weren't like that expensive. So I bought like maybe like, these big ass woofers and everything. And it might have been like $200-300, $400 for a set.
Right.
And then you would have to buy a receiver. And what else would you need?
That's all gift money, no job. You ain't got a job yet?
I didn't have a job. No, this was before a job.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't get a job till like 11th, 12th grade. So yeah, it was all pretty much like birthday and Christmas type gifts and stuff. But lunch money is how I did my record collection.
Wow.
And then
Just starve in school.
starves. Yeah, I would-
Steal somebody's
Bump somebody's
sandwich or
stuff.
yeah, maybe go across the street from Central and go to the pizza spot and maybe get $1 slice or something. But
Yeah.
definitely I would save up to get my records.
So were your parents encouraging, or did they see this as just like a hobby?
Definitely just saw it as a hobby.
Did you see this as a career or a hobby?
Interestingly enough, my sister was is a filmmaker, and she used to make independent films, and hence how we first met, because she brought me to, I guess it was it at Temple? It was for the premiere of Pass the Popcorn video.
Damn.
Wow.
And
Wow.
there was a young lady who used to direct videos, because she did a 3 Times Dope video. I can't remember her name, but my sister was friends with
Come on,
her.
Amir.
And then, but she's the one that's how I wound up coming to the premiere of Pass the Popcorn. And that was where we originally first met. And I came up to you as a young lad and just introduced myself.
Shout out to Abdul Jackson and Kevin Dre. I forget. Damn, man, you just took me back on some joints, man.
Yeah.
I totally forgot.
Oh
that's-
yeah,
Y'all had a premiere party for that
They
video.
For the video, right?
Like,
Just
what?
that
Pass
alone.
the Popcorn video.
So yeah, like my last day at Rough House, just I just threw spaghetti on the wall, see if it stuck, and I just happened to ask Chris Schwartz right after lunch, because I would notice after lunch he'd be
Stop.
in a different mind state,
Yeah.
and I was just like, hey, our band. He knew about the Roots and saw some shows or whatever, and always wondered like, how come we didn't get an offer? But he was just that day. He just like, okay, how much? I was like 5,000.
wow.
He said, you'll need 7,000. So he wrote us like 7,500 thing, and
to do organics.
no to
the
do the
video.
Pass the
Video.
Popcorn,
Oh, just
and
for
we
the video.
shot
Okay.
Pass the Popcorn on Thanksgiving morning.
Wow.
And yeah, it's
So-
shout out to Chris Schwartz of Rough House Records.
And I remember too, my other friends used to be cool with Kenyatta. I used to look up
Crumbs,
to
yeah.
Kilo.
yeah, I used to look up to Yacht. But no, there was it was for them. It was a hobby. For me, it was still, I thought I was gonna wind up going to NYU and be in film school and be a director.
Nah.
At the time, but I loved DJing. It was my thing. So I definitely had, without even realizing, was putting way more time and effort into my DJ career. And then, I had my stuff in my room at my mother's house, and then it got to a point when the traffic of the friends coming over and us trying to make little freestyle tapes and everything, she got fed up because it was like 10:30, and she was like, yo,
Too loud.
it's too loud. And so she let me move to the basement, and I moved, that was my first studio, in the basement of my mom's house, and we used to be down there boom bapping all day after school every day, and that's where I made Illadelph, and I started. My sister took me to New York between 9th and 10th grade. And we went to Harlem, and on 125th, they still had the vendors. And that was when I bought my first mixtape, DJ SNS, Old School Part 2.
Wow.
And the reason why I bought that tape was because all the songs that were on there, when I would go to the record stores, I couldn't get those songs on vinyl anymore because they were, unless they were the bootleg copies and everything. Right. So I bought SNS Old School Part 2, and I was just literally blown away, like, by that tape, by S's talk game, like how he was putting records together, and hence that just really started my fascination with like mixtape culture. And then Clue kind of was coming up on the scene, and when I would get Clue tapes from the Layup and things, like I would feel like when I would go to school, I'd be like, oh, y'all don't know about this yet, like y'all don't have this premiere J. Rue remix or this new Biggie, Grand Poobah, Tupac song, like so I would feel ahead of the curve, and I was just that, and when it came to like DJing and like there were battle DJs, there was radio DJs, there was party DJs, and there were mixtape DJs, but the mixtape DJ for me was always just like larger than life.
Wow.
So for Philadelphians, the Layup, my current production manager, Keith McPhee, kind of opened kind of like Philly's, I don't know if it's the first culture store, but it was like the spot like where it was like the spot where you could get like, what was like first skateboarding gear, like Fresh Jive.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Or
like Stussy,
you could get
Stussy,
those
555 Soul,
those hoodies,
Early Echo.
It's not the hoodies, like those. I can't remember. Or
even those skateboard pants that are like the big at the bottom.
Oh yeah.
I forget what they're called.
Yeah, the 40 waist Johns that were super big.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like, that was just like the cultural epicenter. That's where like mixtapes were.
Yeah.
You get Krylon spray paint.
Yep. You get the caps.
All those things.
Oh man.
Everything was
get a
there
Source
at the
magazine.
Did they have the white man dashiki? The
yes, with
those things. That,
I know what you're talking about. The hoodie that got the pockets right
the
here.
hoodie
And
with the
pockets.
pockets.
It looks like it.
You see like five white boys at lunch playing hacky sack and shit.
Yes.
I would rock that shit all the time. Yeah. And never shower, so all the fuck in the world's just side of that.
I love your honesty.
Who is the DJ? Like for me, yes, like I tried. Okay, I'm gonna try my Rock the Bells thing, just like Jeff does. Or my Cash Money thing, whatever. But for me, I will say that like Cosmic Kev is probably the Cincy DJ that I always have in my head when I'm doing a set or whatever. Like you're always going to emulate someone because, like, if you're making beats,
right?
When you get your drum machine, you start to,
right.
All right, let me see if I could do blah 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 blah, that sort of thing. For you as a DJ,
who were those DJs?
Who was the Cincy? Like, who was the mix that was sort of like, damn, I gotta.
Well, I mean,
or were you even into turntablism? Or
absolutely.
Blending?
I was going to tell you. I mean, because there was, so for me, it was a few. I mean, definitely probably first, it was DJ Ran because.
Wow.
Damn,
yes,
I forgot Ran.
Yeah, because before, before.
Ran's still spinning, right?
Yeah, he was like with the WWF forever.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not sure. Shout to Cosmic Kev too. He just took me on a super history lesson. Like,
was he nice about it?
Who, Kev?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
we talked for like 2 hours just about.
Kev has been gentle lately. We've been exchanging nice words.
We discussed like his relationship with Ran and how things came about and how it went from Ran to Kev and but when, of course, as a youngster, like it was Colby Colb and DJ Ran on Radioactive every Friday night. So people don't realize, like, this is obviously before we had you can go on YouTube, Hulu, anything, and watch anything hip hop you want. Back in the day, we only had certain outlets, so you would run home to catch Rap City, or Friday night I would be tuned in to Radioactive to hear it. So
you're a kid of the no rap work days that Amir talks about all the time.
Oh, you know who else too?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's fucking Jay Ski.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Talk about Jay's. God damn it! Happy 50th birthday, Jay's fucking
50th, right?
Yes.
I think,
he did. He turned 50. Yes.
Because what was the station? It was 103.
Yeah, 103
something.
You stupid with the Jay-Z
with Zulu and the family.
Where is Zulu, man?
Zulu's around. He came to his birthday party.
Zulu was there?
Yes.
Damn.
On the radio side, it was definitely Ran, Kev, and Jay Ski, and then in Philly for me, it was DJ Ghetto, and Ghetto was like,
yes,
you know,
DJ Ghetto.
Yeah, Ghetto used to be our DMC champion. He would go up against Rock Raider, rest in peace, and you know, do his DMC thing. And like, you know, Ghetto has another cousin named Evil Tracy too. Okay. But Ghetto kind of like, you know, took me in as a youngster and was trying to kind of show me how to really cut and scratch and, you know, do things on his level. I could never get it down to that degree, but Ghetto definitely like befriended me as a young DJ too in Philly, so I salute to him. So those were the guys that I was around or were listening to early on. So
when you're in the dramatic era, do you have a regular residency? Are you doing high schools? So Dances is the first club I ever DJ'd at.
Bobby Dance. Yes.
It was for Jawan Lee's birthday party.
The Eagle? No, Jawan Lee.
Jawan Lee, he's a director. He works with Benny Boom. He does a lot of stuff now too. He's my brother to this day. I just saw him the other day. But yeah, that was my first actual club gig. Was Jawan's birthday party at Dances. This might have been like 11th grade. And then I was just doing like, I would get hired to do like block parties or like birthday parties of, you know, kids that I went to school with or, you know, that I knew around town or what have you. And then, you know, I remember we had this crew that it was this crib off Girard Avenue that we lived at, and I used to do a lot of their functions. So, you know, I was getting, you know, gigs here and there, just like around Philly as a kid.
Now, as far as your creative output is concerned, and I specifically want to kind of go step by step, which is why I'm like leading there.
It's a lot.
So,
it's a deep dive.
For you, are you in the mind state of serve my audience, or like I'll admit I'm very selfish with my DJing, and I do it like I'm like Prince doing Darling Nikki. No one cares about the music but yourself.
Yeah.
But I also know that I have a shield of protection that will allow me to play a Mr. Rogers song, or I can play the Number song by the Pointer Sisters on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And kind of get, you know, they'll be like, what the hell's he playing? I'm like, that Questlove's so crazy. Like, I know I can do rogue shit.
Right.
And, you know, and oftentimes the openers are like, yo, man, like, that was crazy you did that. Because even one time, I think Fonte mentioned that someone spun Return to Forever or something.
It
like,
was
or Weather Report.
Yeah, it was out of who was it? It was the Detroit. It wasn't I think it was Theo Parrish.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's known for daredevil shit. Yeah. But my whole point is that, you know, as a DJ, you kind of have two choices, which is serve the people or establish yourself.
Right.
So at the time, and oftentimes like opening DJs have it the hardest because you gotta keep them on the floor. You can't afford, even if you love, like, I remember once an opening DJ got in trouble. He had like an early copy of Brooklyn Zoo. And I think that might have been too, you know, of course, you know, it was like, the new Wu-Tang joint. Brooklyn Zoo, okay. But
it wasn't.
The club owner was like,
no,
you know, that sort of thing. So for you, were you facing any sort of venue structure that would tell you, like, this is what we want and just play R&B or?
Well, no, so not in Philly. When I was in Philly, I was very stubborn and very East Coast with my taste in music and what I would play. Like, I remember I would do parties and want to play Dr. Octagon.
Wow.
Oh, Jesus H. Christ.
Yeah, like, that's where I was at. Like, I wanted to play.
You try to make Blue Flowers work, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, that's where I was at in my Philly days. And, you know, I wanted to play fucking Smith and Wesson album cuts and just, you know, I didn't get to the stage or era of pleasing the crowd or my audience until I moved to Atlanta. Atlanta did it.
And I don't even want to frame it like it's a compromise, because I do think that you're either going to be an effective DJ or you're going to be a teachable lesson DJ.
Yeah, well, I was blessed in my career to be able to be that later on because of who I became and who I was. So once I became DJ Drama, it's like, okay, when they come to see me, they also want to be able to, you know, introduce them to something or be a little more stubborn. But it's really going to Clark Atlanta University and being in the AUC for me, coming from Philly, where I would have people from DC who wanted to hear go-go.
Yup.
I would have, you know, people from the West Coast who wanted to hear shit from LA or the Bay, or I would have people from Texas who wanted to hear screw or what have you. So it taught me how to be well-rounded.
So okay, so and that's where I was going to go next. You know, the whole, I mean, especially now, you kind of morphed into your dramaness before the age of cell phones. So the whole idea of someone putting their phone in your face,
Insane,
like,
right. Yeah.
like I'm a no request person.
Got you.
And that's where my ego gets me in trouble.
Yeah, I'm not like that.
So you're
you'll take
people,
requests.
you're a person of the people.
I am.
Thank you, God.
I'm definitely a person of the people.
I thought,
Like
I thought that was old school.
No. I like when people, like, you know, like if I go to Vegas and it's 8 women who keep putting Bad Bunny on their phone, I gotta play fucking Bad Bunny.
So
like,
even to this day, you're not offended? Like, motherfucker, I'm DJ Drama. Like, I created stars.
Yeah, right.
You don't tell Picasso what to paint. Don't see that. I got an
It's a
ego.
different-
But it's a part of the job.
But that's
What?
not, and
I'm a
that's
man.
that's not the capacity he's there to serve that night. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah, I mean, it depends on the gig too. Like if I get a hipster New York gig for, like, I did something for United Masters, and you know, that night they booked me. Like, I know they want to hear drama shit. Like, I'm gonna play Canon Remix, and I'm gonna, you know, go in and play some Gucci or go here with it. But you know, if I'm at my Vegas residency, like, I'm there to
do the
do
Vegas
the
shit.
part. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
now I'm not at the same time, like,
Right, it's-
I'm still
yeah, you're not
DJ
playing
Drama,
yourself,
so I'm not about to fist pump that thing out.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Right.
have you ever had a
I mean,
moment, or at least that was sort of the
mean-
shit back in 2014?
yeah, I mean, I've played those records at times, like,
What?
yeah, I mean, but that's not the majority of my set. Like, I know
Yeah.
when they book me, like, they come there for a certain
No,
reason.
yeah,
like,
I get
people,
it. I get
people, like, when I go even to Vegas, like, and you know, Vegas has had a transition at time where it's become much more hip hop driven than it was. But I'm just saying, like, when I go to gigs, like, people want to hear DJ Drama be DJ Drama. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah.
like,
But is it confusing now at this stage in your life where, okay,
Like-
so say an album that I would associate you with, like any Canyon record. So let's say like Go Crazy,
right?
which came out in what, 2009,
Exact-
2008,
Yeah.
which to an old guy, to me, I'm still like, oh, that's new rap, even
nah,
though
that's-
that's
yeah.
old school.
Uh,
Right.
No. So no, I mean,
So is it confusing now?
No, not for me, because I go with the times, and I go, like, I just got off a tour with Wiz and Logic, for instance. So, but and the blessing for me is that that's not, like, as much as there's an audience that knows me for that, when I get on stage at the Wiz Khalifa and Logic show, I start with a Tyler the Creator record, and then I go into I play Stick off the Dreamville tape, because that's still my shit. Like, it's still off Gangsta Grillz.
That's what I was curious. So that's when DJ Dramatic to me kind of enters the thing. I know you. I don't know if you hate when I go DJ Dramatic
It's all
versus
good.
Drama, but it's just how I can define.
mean,
I knew
Dramatic
you
is-
when you was a mirror.
No, it's not.
But I was Drama
It's
first,
not a-
though. I mean, it wasn't like I was dramatic.
No,
I
no.
was Drama, and then I tried to change it to Dramatic, and then I went back. So it wasn't like I was originally DJ Dramatic. I was DJ Drama first.
But you okay? I'll accept that. But you know, when I say dramatic, it's also like to an era, a time when you did have a certain lane that you were in that you have kind of left since.
Well, what
in a
happened
way.
was I didn't know. I mean, like, as much as I was putting into Gangsta Grillz, I was putting into Automatic Relaxation. One just took off from the other.
Exactly.
Okay, so let me ask you, when you decide to go to Clark University,
Yep. Clark
Atlanta.
Clark Atlanta.
Yep.
And I assume that, you know, you're transporting your equipment with you.
Yep.
So, and that's important. Like, you already know that in your dorm that your big ass speakers and your records and your turntables
All had to come with me.
are coming with you. Okay.
Absolutely.
No question.
Without
Were your parents like, what the hell are you doing? Like, you're in a dorm.
in a
with-
dorm, yeah.
No,
How
I
dare you?
mean, they, you know, I mean, by that point, I was already, like, kind of, you know, it was clear that I was on a certain path, and I was, you know, this DJ thing was
So it's going to happen in college, not just some high school thing. And
I don't know if they knew. I mean, clearly they didn't see this happening. Like, you know, I mean, my mom even after school was concerned about me getting a real, quote unquote, real job. But yeah, I mean, when I got to school, like it was, you know, I brought my Philly hustle with me. Like, Layup will tell you, like freshman year when everybody was freaknicked out, I bought a bunch of T-shirts from this guy named Moot, and I was hustling T-shirts during Freaknik. Like, I didn't partake in none of the activities. Like, or I would set up on campus we had these green trash cans, and I had this little yellow radio, and I would like hustle my mixtapes in between classes. So
like, how did you find an outlet to establish yourself in Atlanta?
Well, I mean, the outlet was the AUC. It was our world. I mean, there was enough.
And working at Marco's, you feel like working at Marco's too was?
I mean, Marco's Peter.
I didn't go to college. UC.
The AUC,
Atlanta University
Center. So that's Clark, Atlanta. That's Morris Brown at the time. So that's Morehouse and Spelman.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally have 4 historically black colleges and universities right in one epicenter. So there's multitudes of parties and gigs available. So Did
you try to find your flock, or
no? I can't.
Or were you like, okay, where do they into down here?
It just happened naturally because, you know, as you start doing gigs, I mean, you realize, oh, I got people from everywhere. So, you know, I learned very early on. And I shout out to my man DJ Sense. And Sense is also from Philly. We met freshman year, and he kind of was a little more commercially driven than I was at the time. Like, I was real backpack rap, and he was like bad boy, you know what I'm saying? So us doing gigs together, he kind of helped influence and inspire me to get, you know, kind of be able to, you know, like he yelled at me one time, I cut the Benjamins off too early.
Oh, wow.
At a gig. And he was like, bro, like, you can't cut it off at this part. And he was right, you know what I'm saying? So us doing gigs together, I kind of got more into my commercial bag. And, you know, because I still, even when I was in school, when I was doing these college gigs, I was still DJing lyricist lounges. I was still at Yin Yang Cafe doing
That's right.
You didn't know
shit.
you was at Yin
like,
Yang.
You know what I mean? Like, I was still into that world, so I was bouncing between worlds.
Who was the DJ down here that was your or your Kaiser Sosa coffee mug slow drop realization thing that this is some next shit down here that I have to figure out?
First, there was DJ Nabs. Nabs was the ultimate. I mean, he was on the radio. He was on television. He had Nabs in the Lab at Club Kaya Sunday night, which was just the ultimate experience. And then I think for me, it probably was DJ Mars. Mars also at the time was, you know, he used to be on, he had a BET gig, so he was doing, what was that show called? It was one of them shows. Mars was on the radio, you know, he was on every day, and he was in the club, so he was like one of those, like the guys that we looked towards as like, damn, that's the next level. So, and it's funny because I did the same thing with you too. I know you don't remember this, but I used to like write for this like little magazine or like little zine, and I went and did an interview with Mars. That's how I introduced myself to him. I went to go interview him at the station, and then I handed him one of my mixtapes, and he was like, yo, this shit's hot. And I oddly enough, when you guys came to Atlanta one time, I did the same thing with you. I did an interview with you for the magazine, and that was how I first found out about Dilla, because this was the era where you were Dilla'd out, and you told me like, yo, all we do is listen to Slum Village, and this is late 90s and everything, and you know, so I would kind of, you know, wiggle my way in, whatever to you know, get my name out there or get my tapes in people's hands.
Atlanta, I feel like Atlanta really found itself with what Organized Noise and OutKast and all those guys established.
Absolutely.
So, but the thing is that I didn't call it anything. Like, I know like New Orleans is bounce and there's bass music in Miami, but what was Atlanta's culture before trap? Like, first of all, does Atlanta own what we know as trap?
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%.
So what was before the BC era of that.
It was Dungeon Family. I mean, so you think I moved here in '96.
Okay.
96, Philadelphia Half-Life came out. 96, ATLiens came out.
Muddy Waters, Redman.
Muddy Waters came out.
Reasonable.
Mobb Deep, second album came out.
Hell on Earth. Yeah.
Hell on Earth came out.
The Score.
Because Daylight Stakes is High came out before I got here too.
Right.
Because I remember to move down south to avoid the chaos line.
And I have an elevators question to ask you. 'Cause
I came right when elevators kind of hit. Like,
okay, so let me ask you something. All right, and why is elevators like my new Latin quarters?
So many tangents we can go. So much I gotta talk. I want to say like.
So just while we're here, all right. So when we asked, L.A. Reid and Organized Noise, my thing was, I would ask them why would they take such a risk with the sonic choice of elevators? Yes, it's a masterpiece of a song, but
who knew at the time?
I was just like, who would ever put like a song that's like 86 BPMs, which was very slow at the time compared to what was hitting, and it was just everything about that song was just like it was a risk. It was a Hail Mary throw that got caught, and Organized Noise explained that they leaked it first, and of course L.A. Reid really wanted
because they
ATLiens to come out first.
They took it to the radio station and just like
enforced it right, and then. But as a DJ, like, could you explain to me the effect that song had on, or just at the time, like?
Yeah, I mean, it was Atlanta, so, like, again, it was when ATLiens dropped, just the pride and the sonics and the creativity of that album. Southern Playalistic was already a thing,
right?
And then ATLiens came, and it was like, oh, these boys is different, I mean,
right.
that was the era when 3000 was walking around with the turban, and
right.
Goody Mob had dropped and everything. So it was like, I just think the pride in it. I hear stories about before OutKast about how you would go to certain clubs in Atlanta, like Warehouse and things, and people would almost want to kind of act like they were from New York, and then.
He just said,
they
just said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did he? And then it was OutKast that was almost brought that pride out, where it made people in Atlanta feel proud to be from Atlanta or from the South. You know what I'm saying? So so before the trap era, Atlanta was defined by Dungeon Family, by So Def, and by LaFace Records,
yeah.
and that was the the trifecta of what Atlanta was.
So when you are down here, at what point the cast of characters that were known as the Aphilliates, how are they amalgamating themselves in your life? Like, are you meeting them now at this point?
So I met DJ Sense literally the first day I get to school in Clark, Atlanta. I get in, we go to the dorm to Brawley Hall, and my room number was 215.
Wow.
Crazy, right? And then somebody told Sense, hey, there's a DJ on the second floor from Philly, and he told me he had kind of already heard about me in Philly, like, I had it's crazy to think I had a little buzz, but
he had a rep.
He knew about me, so we like battled it. We battled in my room like the first day we met, just kind of going back and forth on the turntables, cutting and scratching, and then we were doing parties together, and we were like a dynamic duo, and just people would book me or book him, or we would go together and we would do all the parties. Right. And then my next year, this tall lanky kid gets on campus, and like he had heard about me, and he kind of was like, yo, my name's Donnie Brasco, I'm from Philly, and I'm a DJ, I make beats. And I was kind of, Kyle, him and Kyle went to school together, so Kyle kind of like put a sour taste in my mouth early on, like that Cannon was a nut.
Kyle was part of Tyree and them crew.
Yeah.
It was a whole crew of Philly dudes.
We weren't even all Philly. It was always it was Dame.
Well, yeah.
Dame was there.
You had a North Carolina. Yeah,
Carolina. Then it was Chris and Ely. Yeah. It was Dame. It was me, Sense, and I had like my school crew, and then I had like my Rubik's, Jacks, and my hip hop, my Binkus crew. But
Binkus.
Rest in peace to my brother Jax.
Yeah,
but so finally, Cannon wound up giving me a beat CD, and I went home and I listened to it, and I was like, yo, this shit is fucking fire. So next day I see him on campus. I'm like, yo, I've listened to your beat tape. That shit's hard. Like, come through the crib. So it went from me and Sense to me, Sense, and Cannon, and then we were just, the three of us were like, damn near inseparable, like while we were in school, and we would do a bunch of gigs together or just support each other, or when I was selling tapes, like Cannon and Sense would make their tapes, and I would I would sell them all, and we would just do events together. But the way the Aphilliates came about is because there was a crew called the Super Friends, which was DJ Mars, DJ Trauma. There was Cowboy was in there, Fahrenheit, Shakim was Super Friends, and they made us part. We were like the youngest of the crew, and they invited us in.
And the DJ Trauma that is currently with Chappelle. Okay. Just
and
sure.
It was that was one of the reasons why I tried to change my name to Dramatic. It's because of Trauma. Because
Trauma and Drama.
And his name is Tyree.
And y'all both had
and we
locks.
both had locks at the time.
Oh, man.
And he was on the radio, and he was on fire. And it was like everywhere I would go and try to say I'm DJ Drama, they'd be like, Drama? And I'd be like, no, Drama. And it just used to frustrate me. Like, man, I'm about to just change my name. And Mars, interestingly enough, was like, yo, don't change your name for nobody. And Trauma was his best friend. But he said, yo, don't change your name for nobody. Like, if that's your name, that's your name. So we were part of the Super Friends, and we were really trying to be focused like on mixtapes, and the Super Friends were very party driven, and we kind of had we went through a little disagreement at the time. As my memory serves me, Jacob York offered the Super Friends opportunity to do an album. And we were kind of already, feeling a certain type of way because, we weren't like, they were getting all the gigs, and, we were trying to make our name. We couldn't get no sponsorship for the mixtapes because they were getting all the sponsorship for the parties and everything.
Right.
And they were like, yo, if we do an album, let's call it Gangsta Grillz because that's the strongest brand out of all of us. And I was like, I don't want to call the Super Friends album Gangsta Grillz. Like, that's my shit. So they basically
Wait, when did you morph into Gangsta Grillz?
Yeah.
I started Gangsta Grillz in 2000. So by like 03, 04, it had become a thing, like where it was, Lil Jon was the first person to host it, so I used his voice on Gangsta Grillz 4, and it was still just like a compilation at the time, and I did like Gangsta Grillz 5, and I just kept using Jon's voice.
Right. How do you approach an artist? Because for a lot of the artists that were on Gangsta Grillz mixtape, like as an outsider, I didn't know none of those people. So, I'm hearing T.I. for the first time. I'm hearing like everyone that you put on. About to say
Jeezy.
Trapper Dot. Yeah, Jeezy and
Jeezy,
all those things. Even like really the first time I really paid attention to Wayne and all that stuff is really on Gangsta Grillz.
Right.
So, like, how are you propositioning them and approaching them to do these things?
I mean, each situation is differs in a way, but like Lil Jon Sense was working at the station, and Cersei and Lil Jon were partners in BME, and Jon used to be up there all the time, and Jon he's one of the most down-to-earth, humble guys in the world, and I literally just asked him, this was a time when I was paying attention to what was going on the East Coast, and I asked him, like, yo, would you host a mixtape for me? And he was like, sure. And he came to my crib in the 4th Ward, and hence the Gangsta Grillz drop was born. And, he hosted the tape. T.I., Jason Jeter is the first person to ever call me. He got my number off the back of a mixtape from the barbershop.
Right.
Now think about this. I get 1,000 DMs a day about artists trying to get on. The first phone call I ever got was from Jason Jeter, and he was like, hey, my name's Jason Jeter. I have this new artist signed to LaFace. We have a song with Beanie Siegel called 2 Glocks 9. I got one of your mixtapes. I want to bring them through to freestyle on one of your tapes. And I was like, all right, sure, cool, whatever. So
sight unseen, you don't know.
Never met Tip, never wasn't even familiar with the 2 Glocks 9 record yet.
Right.
So he literally comes to the crib, Jeter and Tip, super shy and quiet at the time. You know, I had my equipment in like where the laundry room would be. He comes in there. I pick a beat. I picked for the fan beat. It was the Rockefeller.
Yeah.
With the one with a mill and
Yeah.
everybody on it.
Right.
And he freestyled on that. And at the end of the freestyle, he said, you know, the king of the South. And I remember once him and Jeter left, I went to Sense like, yo, this nigga said he's the king of the South. Like, he's tripping. Like, so that was literally our introduction. And then, you know, Jeter was also from Jersey, so he was paying attention to my mixtape grind and what I was doing. And they were kind of, you know, once things didn't work out between them and L.A. Reid, they got on their mixtape grind. So we were kind of both coming up at the same time. Where I lived on Glen Iris, Coach K lived around the corner from me.
Okay.
So Coach K, you know, lived around the corner. We got cool with Coach K. He had this group called Jadis, who Bobby Creekwater was a part of, who later got signed to Shady.
Yeah, he was on Shady, yeah.
That was Coach K's first group. And then he also used to work for Alan Henderson in Hindu when Alan Henderson had a record label. But we got cool with Coach K, and then he told me, like, yo, I got this artist from Macon. His name is Jeezy, and he had an album out. The first album they put out was called Come Shop With Me. And then Jeezy, Coach would bring Jeezy over, and I would make show CDs for Jeezy. I would charge him like $100, and he would come, and
What is it?
He was doing shows in Macon.
Okay.
And I would like make CDs. He would take instrumentals, whatever instrumentals were hot at the time, and I would just make them little like show CDs to put together. As Gangsta Grillz was becoming a thing, so then I did like, you know, then like I did the John tape. Then like I think Scrappy hosted one. Then I did. Jeter called me and was like, "Yo, I've been listening to the tapes. I got this idea. Let's do an all T.I. and PSC Gangsta Grillz." And I was like, bet, you know. And at the time, I'm just fascinated by Green Lantern and Who Kid and what Fifth is doing and what they're doing. And so Jeter and Tip gave me the opportunity to do the type of mixtape that I wanted to do.
So you felt instantly, and by the way, we didn't even acknowledge that we are in
T.I.
in Tip's studio right now.
Is.
Thank you, T.I.
Thanks
Thanks,
Tip.
expeditiously saying yes for this. Yeah, but for you, did you? Because I'm just amazed at your amount of faith. It's so weird. Like I need to have this conversation because I'm such a no now, or who gonna be there?
Who are gonna be there?
Who are gonna be there? Like that sort of thing, and get me out of this or whatever.
Right.
But it seems to me that the key to your success is the word yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, and
absolutely.
You
like
would have
I'm the
been
type
great
of
at-
guy. When I go outside, I give my number to everybody.
Wow.
The worst thing that I can do is not answer.
It's not that right. Yeah.
Because I think about that all the time. What if I would have told Jeter no?
wow.
So
Now I
be-
think
should be
about all the
different.
news I've told the Jeters in my life.
now don't get me wrong. I've missed out on some things.
Have you passed up on a moment that like, damn, I could have had blah blah blah?
Of course.
Name three notable. You probably worked with them since, but at least like you could at least introduce them to the world or whatever.
I mean, I've said this before, but Drake definitely wanted a Gangsta Grillz very early on,
All right,
for sure.
and you didn't know about him, or it was just like you were too busy, or
It didn't happen.
you say about too much, or
It didn't happen.
I
But
get it.
you know, I mean, he went and he did a Southern Smalls tape, like DJ Smalls. So
right.
at the time there was Southern Smoke and there was Gangsta Grillz. So
Yeah, I was going to say who. So in your world,
we're skipping so much.
no. All right, let's go back.
Yeah,
let's go back. You
We
take
can
us.
jump around, whatever.
Come back. Come
Okay,
back.
so let's go back. So then Bun B was a very early believer. So then I did the tip Gangsta Grillz, and that just like took off in the streets. And it was like, you know, Tip was on fire, Gangsta Grillz was becoming a thing, and you know that was the soundtrack of the streets in Atlanta. The T.I. PSC meets Gangsta Grillz, and then I did a tape for Bun, and then I did a Gangsta Grillz party, and it was in Buckhead, and I think Tip hosted Bonecrusher hosted. I think David Banner. Yeah, I did a tape with David Banner and Bonecrusher hosting. That was Gangsta Grillz like 7, and it was like that. That was insane. That was a big one, but it was still a compilation at the time.
Right.
So then Coach and Jeezy took me out. They wanted to take me to lunch one day, so they took me to the spot called Harry and Sons. And Jeezy tells me, "Yo, I was at your party. Yo, I don't know how much you know, but the streets like fuck with you, you know." And I'm like, "Word?" Like, you know, I'm in the streets selling.
You're unaware
mixtapes.
of this?
Yeah, I'm very unaware. Like when what his streets are wasn't what my streets were.
That
like,
part.
My streets were
Even being in Atlanta?
Yeah, well, I was familiar, you know what I'm saying, because I was doing parties for like BMF and things of that nature. But the streets for me were like going to the flea market and selling boxes of CDs, you know.
You're not going to Bankhead or
I'm going
East
anywhere.
Point or
I'm going anywhere that they sell CDs, I'm going.
Okay.
But I'm not, you know,
in the streets.
yeah, I'm selling
Out the car,
mixtapes.
just dropping it
I'm
in
not
the-
selling
yeah.
nothing but mixtapes.
Dope.
Right, that
So,
part.
you know, yeah. So then, you know, Jeezy tells me like, yo, like Meech, when Meech goes to campus, that's where he goes and gets his Gangsta Grillz from. Like he's listening to your shit, and he's like, listen, I got this vision. Like I want to do a Gangsta Grillz with you. Like he had it all mapped out, and I was listening, like no doubt. But at the time, I had never done a tape with somebody who wasn't known yet. And that was the first time I got paid for a tape. They gave me $1,000, and we did the tape. It was called Streets is Watching.
God damn.
It was
I could have
original.
changed my life with just 10 $100 bills.
Right?
What the fuck?
Back
Why did
then.
we go to you?
Back then, right.
I had $1,000. Shit.
He paid me $1,000 to do the tape.
You was already working good.
Yeah, you was on like, what are we talking
Right?
about?
Like on 5th record.
yeah, how
Nah,
many,
man,
how many
it's
Grammys
still-
did you have by
yeah,
this
Yeah,
point?
oh,
Like,
yeah.
come on.
Oh, yeah, you
We
got me.
still, to this day, it's almost like we cut, like someone took us to the front of the bank line on a
y'all
Friday.
cut- yeah.
And we got to go back to Baltic Avenue and Mediterranean Avenue and Oriental Avenue. Like we got Park Place and all that stuff, but we still haven't. We realized that there's an early gap that we skipped, and it doesn't matter. Like I could have 42 Oscars. We have to scratch that itch with black people.
Yeah, they never did
Well,
like the conferences and stuff like that.
I
How
got
to
you.
how to be down, Jack the Rapper, Impact, all
We
that
wanted
kind
to, but you know, Geffen wouldn't have that. So anyway, so go.
So then, yeah, so originally the tape was called G's Up, but that was the name of Scrappy's group at the time. So we changed it to Streets is Watching. So when I did Streets is Watching, again, Gangsta Grillz was a bigger brand than Young Jeezy at the time. So we put the tape out, and we put it out around Birthday Bash era, and you know, within a couple months, I mean, I remember the first person to ever tell me, my man Jay, who does Raw Report, who wound up doing the DVD with Jeezy for Trap or Die, but you know, he pulled. I was on Glen Iris with my dad, and he was driving by, and he was like, "Yo, that Jeezy tape, that's the best Gangsta Grillz you've ever done."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Word?" I just told Jeezy this the other day, and I was like, "Word, the new nigga?" Like, because I'm TI'd out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's Tip the King, like I'm on fire with Tip, and he's like, "Yo, the Jeezy tape, like that shit hits different." So, you know, a couple months in, Coach K is like, Drum, you got to come on the road with us. Like, you got to see what's going on. Like, they're doing this word for word.
There's one thing you're skipping. I gotta know this. As far as the marketing and the distribution,
Yeah.
is there only one place to get this? Because how is Tariq? Well, I mean, I guess y'all. I don't know how he got your joints.
Nah,
but
so really, thankfully, the bootleggers were like taking my shit to the next level. They were doing a lot of the legwork for me.
so you didn't know that you were national?
No, when Gangsta Grillz 7 came out, I wound up finding out where the bootleg spot was. And this was around the time, no, I'm sorry, it was Gangsta Grillz 6. It was Gangsta Grillz 6. But it was 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying had just came out. We wound up finding out where the bootleg spot were in the West End. And we went there, and I literally saw as many Gangsta Grillz 6s as I did Get Rich or Die Trying bootlegs.
Wow.
And I was like fascinated. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Not thinking, damn, like I'm not really making a lot of money.
I was about
These
to say.
niggas is making a lot of money off my shit. But it's a mixtape. So it was, for me, it was you know, it was a calling. Like, I mean, it was my calling card. Like, so I was just excited, and I was moving around. Like, I would come to Canal Street in New York, and I would, you know, even at a time when they were telling me like, nah, we don't really check for South mixtapes, I would just be like, listen, take this. it's all yours, like, you know, and let me know how it does. And I would call back a couple weeks, months later, and they'd be like, yo, send us some more. So
when did that start? Is that like after 6? Is that from the jump, or is that like?
that was all around the time. It was all around that time, around 6, around the. By the time Trap or Die came out, Gangsta Grillz was the thing.
Yeah,
so it was like, I didn't go anywhere in the country. I was on tour with T.I. at the time, and I was hearing my shit come out of every car. And then I was like, damn, what I'm going to do next? And the next tape I did was Dedication.
Okay, y'all, so that's going to conclude part 1 of our conversation with DJ Drama. But wait a minute, you need to stay tuned for part 2, where we speak to Drama about making mixtape classics with Lil Wayne, his evolution from making those tapes to platinum hits, and why he is so proud about working with Phonte and Little Brother on separate but equal. Y'all don't want to miss that conversation. It gets deep and so good. But listen, stay tuned, because we got more with my family repping CAU all day, DJ Drama.
Questlove Supreme is a production of iHeartRadio.